Okay, well, I guess should we just get started, Trinity? Should we jump into it?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're gonna be discussing terpenes. Before we do, I did want to say we do. If you have essential oils, we have it listed on the schedule. We're talking about specific ones. Pinene is one of them. Myrcene. I have a list of them, but there's also, if you do not happen to have essential oils, although I know a lot of you probably do, lavender for linalool. You can also, oh, thank you. Limonene is one such as found in lemons and limes. So if you have a lemon and you scratch your lemon, you got it, perfect. If you have myrcene is in ylang ylang, which I do have in essential oil form. I didn't really have any ylang ylang hanging around. But I do have humulene, which is found in hop sage. If you open a beer, you can smell it. You can smell that hoppy smell. So that's humulene. Black pepper. And pinene, I have pine cone. If you have pine or any kind of pine stuff, or pine sol, just be careful if you're whiffing pine sol. I don't want to see you like pass out if you've been whiffing pine sol.
Will not cure COVID.
Yeah, it's not COVID approved. So don't inject or whiff pine sol during this conference. All right. So, and part of this honestly came up because of my work in the cannabis community and helping run the Emerald Cup for the first 3 years that it was here in Santa Rosa at the fairgrounds. And that was probably like 5 years ago. And the terpenes in cannabis became almost like a faddish rage in some ways, although they are very, very important to the way the cannabis acts on you. And the terpenes will often dictate the effects of certain strains. For example, most really heavy sativas that are very cerebral stimulants, they kind of up you, they have a lemony smell to them. That's one of the ways that indicates it's a very good, strong sativa. And so as we get into this, I guess, and I don't know how we want to really do this. We've had several different conversations, but I think maybe just at some point, I'm hoping you will tell us what the heck a terpene is. But before we go there, I had one thing I did want to share, and I was sharing this with other people here. So back in this, say not even 4 years ago, about 3 years ago, people started, there was a misconception that terpenes were only found in cannabis. And an even bigger misconception was that these essential oils were made from cannabis. But a lot of us here know that that's actually not feasibly possible because of the expense. I mean, if you remember that the rose attar, essential oil of roses, takes like a room full of rose petals, right? For a little thing of it. That'd be the same with cannabis. And so you're talking about something that would be very expensive. But what these folks were doing was they were telling people that they were selling essential oils of cannabis. And this is just one, and I'm not going to show you the logos, but this one company was selling different vials of essential oils, and they were formulated to the terpene testing ratios of the cannabis strains, such as Granddaddy Purple or Trainwreck, which are great strains. But they were telling people to put their danky old piece of cannabis into this little jar here, and then directly add drops of essential oils to that bud, shake it up and smoke it. Yeah. Yeah, and so that sort of led to this sort of discussion about, okay, wait a minute, what is a terpene, where are they found, and really why you shouldn't be putting them on your buds directly and smoking them. Because these are real things this is a fancy kit that someone designed. It's kind of nice. It's on a little thing. And the essential oils are really quite lovely in there, but they're really essential oils. So I don't even want to address that first, Trinity, before we head into this, because that's not a good idea, is it?
Don't smoke your Don't smoke volatile oils. No, don't do that. Don't ingest essential oils. They're not your friend. Not that way. Unless you're brushing your teeth or you're smelling a lemon and
Yes.
squeezing your lemon, then you're ingesting some citrus. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know there are some essential oils that are safer to consume, but even you would do that in a very low dose. You would not be consuming them. I mean, we all know the story of pennyroyal tea, and the essential oil, and young people damaging their kidneys with that. So I think the same thing is possible if you were smoking it, and people really need to be a little more educated about that.
I think I would draw a firmer line in the sand, having been
okay.
steeped. I've been working with essential oils and teaching at Bastyr University for over a decade, specifically on essential oils. It's been my jam to love the volatile molecules, but that's not something you want to put in your water. Don't copy brands like doTERRA and Young Living. Those are all really bad pieces of advice in general.
Okay.
Drink your herbs, drink your tea, then you're drinking some volatiles. When you make a cup of peppermint tea, Shawnee was just showing you how to make tea, right? And you put the lid on it so you don't lose the volatile molecules. And then you're ingesting, but in its minute quantities. You're not dumping essential oils on your herb to smoke it, and you're not dumping essential oils in your mouth and drinking them. Those are all not good ideas. Although I will say there is some very advanced work that's happening at a macrocosm with naturopathic doctors. Oops, I heard a feedback bit.
Yeah, you're not on mute. Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Trinity. Sorry.
There are very much more, what would I say, invasive ways of using essential oils that are being explored for preventing and treating diseases, like injecting of essential oils to treat different types of cancer. That does exist, but that's far beyond what our aroma enthusiasts, what we're here to talk about is, why do we even care about terpenes is the question, Mitcho, when we were talking, like, oh, the cannabis industry is really spinning this in a weird way, like they've got something cool that no one else has. But let's maybe show and talk about the backbone of what a terpene is, and then talk about the relevance of why does it even matter to you? Because it's influencing why we're using the herb the way we're using it, and also some underexplored reasons why we should be really mindful that we should get to smell our herbs, that's like the basic birthright, and now that's been taken away from cannabis. And that should be informing you based on smell, how that plant might feel inside of you. And that's a really important, for me at least, if you're going to use this plant, just like any other plant, you should be able to fall in love with its aroma and know how it's speaking inside of you. Stardust, can I share my screen? All right, I think I can. All right, he's going to make that happen for me. Let's try that. Thank you.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
So there's also another point before I will describe some terpenes, and I'll say first and foremost, I'm not a chemist. I'm trained in phytochemistry, and I'm a devout student of trying to understand the thousands and thousands and thousands of molecules that are present in a plant. And the classifications of these aromas, these are present in all plants, these terpene molecules, where, so let's just say what a terpene is. This is actually the most up-to-date definitions of a terpene or a terpenoid is a biosynthesis. And so just even calling it a terpene is actually even antiquated at this point. If you really want to geek out on phytochemistry, for those herb geeks that are like me and many of you, I imagine, you really want to understand how some of the molecules work. For me as an herbalist, as a formulator, so much of my job is in research and development of formulation strategy, and then to justify why I formulate the way I formulate. I use the molecules to inform me why I would make something for pain based upon what the molecules can do. And that understanding the terpenes and the functional groups as based in not just aromatherapy, this is phytochemistry. This is the Bible of the book that we use in teaching at herb school, which is Dave Hoffman's Medical Herbalism. where we look at all the different breakdowns of what are those molecules good at and why should you care. So having this idea of terpenes, where they're found everywhere in nature practically. So words on my screen, more than 20,000 different structures. I believe if you want to study with another great leader in understanding molecules, Lisa Ganora, Herbal's Constituent Book. She is one of the leading experts. Lisa Ganora, I bow to you. You have helped me so much and so many other students. There's about 600 terpenes that we've identified right now. I'm sure there's more than that because it's constantly growing. These derived 5-carbon isoprene units are assembled in what I said, thousands of artistic genius arrangements, and we find them in plants. Terpenes are found in plants, humans, cholesterol, fungi, bacteria, and even some insects. And what that matters to me, and what I think should be mattering to you, is what are those terpenes doing for the plants, for the insects, for the fungi, and us humans? That they're an integral part of an attraction and a repulsion. And so we are attracted to our plant friends a lot of times by how they smell and what they trigger within our body. When we're thinking about it from an herbal perspective, the smell of our cannabis should be very important and intimate to you wanting to smell it, that it triggers something in you that gets alive from that, just like when we were smelling lemon. It's a game I like to play in herb classes. If you'll imagine with me right now, those of you who are listening to this, or if you're watching this moment, imagine what this lemon tastes like, and something very, very physical should start to happen to you. Imagine this lemon with me. And your imagination's strong enough, you start to feel your squirters right back here starting to squirt. Mitcho's shaking his head. And it happens to most of us that we are programmed to understand how to use these terpenes. It is innate within you to understand these flavor profiles. It is innate within you to know how to relax from them. It's innate within you to know how to get stimulated from them. And so helping to understand these aromas inside of ourselves is where it gets really exciting about, whoa, terpenes, what options do you have in healing and formulation strategy? Oh, you can relax me, you can be antispasmodic, you can calm me down. And I get really annoyed that I'm seeing so many cancer claims in the cannabis industry, that a lot of that I feel is just completely irresponsible at this point in time in human history to be rocking those claims, other than cannabis may be a part that be woven into supportive care. But the claims that I'm seeing in the industry about curing things, that makes me really frustrated. But terpenes, circling back, they're an innate part of plants to attract predators or attract pollinators and repel predators is the words I'm wanting to say. They also, really importantly, when we're smelling things, as Mitcho was saying, we're smelling an essential oil or something like that. When we smell these volatile molecules, which comprise the aroma of cannabis or any other plant, it's really important to digest. I will let you in 1 second. It's really important in my mind to digest that when you're smelling, whether it's, Mitcho, what are some of the aromas that you brought? If you would unmute yourself again, what are some of those great aromas you had as samples or examples?
We are right now, PG and I were smelling black pepper, which is anti-inflammatory. And then we also have some limonene, and we have pinene, and we have humulene. Oh yeah. And then I also, of course, I have my jar of hops and my empty beer bottle. Empty? What the heck? So, and you can actually really, and there are certain smells that you will recognize in cannabis when you smell them, like when you smell linalool or lavender essential oil. There's even a strain named lavender. It really has a lavender smell.
And when we're smelling those, some things that I would like to invite you to percolate in your mind. You're smelling the most antiviral, bactericidal, and antifungal part of the plant's chemistry. Some of the most, not the most, but some of the most actions that the plant has in helping we humans adapt to the stressor of virus, bacteria, and fungi. And that when we're using those molecules, they're helping to change our own microbial nature, because we humans are outnumbered, 10 to 1 by the cootie, by bacteria, and the viral load count is still undetermined, anywhere from 10 to 20. We still don't fully understand that. So the conversation of terpenes for me is about understanding that if you're using any form of plant medicine, not just cannabis, those aromas are triggering your receptor sites, whether it's the endocannabinoid system or your digestive system or your adrenals or your hormones, that those aromas, and this is a really important point to take home, we, as of 2015, we discovered that we have receptor sites, and these are my receptor site hands, kind of like jazz hands, receptor site hands, receptor sites through our whole body to perceive aroma. And so that means that your lungs are smelling, your heart is smelling. When you smell rose, and they say it can really be a tonic for grief, literally your heart is smelling, your lungs are smelling. Semen finds the egg by aroma, that these aromatic molecules are woven within your DNA to understand how they work. And mostly we don't understand how they work right now. That's what's very, very clear. We know less than what we think we know. And specifically the cannabis industry really pushing on these aromas for what? For what end? What does it do? It's not about becoming a better herbalist. It's about having good bud, and that's cool. But really, at the end of the day, you need to learn, and I need to learn how it feels inside of you and how those aromas trigger responses that are involuntary. So the heads up, body down, as Mitcho was saying about this mind, those aromas are half of the trigger. And when I was just looking through different blogs in the cannabis industry, and people were really trying to equate, is cannabis like aromatherapy? And like, bingo, now you're getting it. Now you're making some sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Now this is making sense, that the smell of it, when you whether smoke it or you put it on your body, it's going to trigger a whole cascade of medicine that's just derived by the aroma, whether it's an antispasmodic nature, so it's going to reduce spasms or reduce pain or get you high or clear in your mind, that a lot of those actions are via the aromas. I've said a lot though. Mitcho, do you want to jump in?
No, I think that's exactly the point. Is they don't realize. Well, first off, I honestly can't tell you how many people who use cannabis don't realize they're using plant-based medicine. That
Well,
they're using plant medicine here. This is not some chemical. Even if you're using hash, it's a concentrated form of plant medicine. And two, yes, understanding the basics of what you're talking about in terms of aromatherapy. These fragrances and these essential oils, these smells, that's aromatherapy. And so just a basic understanding of that, which is not that difficult to grasp, would behoove a lot of people who are using cannabis, because it would actually help them determine which strains they really do like, because they can tell with studies. Testing can tell us the terpene readout of different strains, and not just different strains, because that will even change by who grew it and where it was grown. The plants change. These are living, changing things, which is why they often are, plants are often more effective than pharmaceuticals that are just frozen and stagnant. These plants are growing and changing. And so using plant medicine is actually usually being ahead of the game, not stuck somewhere.
There's a couple of comments in the chat box, Mitcho. I wanted to highlight though, one of the really fun and empowering parts that I love about understanding the constituents of plants. It helps me understand. Benoit, I don't know if you're still on with us right now. You're asking about Tulsi, whether it's which one's hotter versus more neutralizing. When I smell Tulsi, and maybe this will help you hone your nose in. When you smell Tulsi, one of the grabbing aromas of specifically the two species, Krishna and Vana, what you notice is a very clovey aroma. It's very bossy. And what that, Mitcho, should be nodding inside everyone's head, you should go, oh, wow, that is one of the most powerful infection-fighting plants we know of, is clove. It changes bacteria and virus and fungi. So when we're drinking a tea that smells like a lot of clove, you have an ally that's really good at fighting off infection, which is one of the reasons why Tulsi's been said to be the incomparable one, because it's got such a beautiful balance of all these different aromas, but it's really good at kicking infection tuchus. It's one of its superpowers, and it's got a superpower for helping your lungs. It's got a superpower for helping balance blood sugar levels. And most importantly, Tulsi's got a superpower for balancing your head to your heart. And so we can say those are the terpenes, but there's so much more than that that's going on. There's thousands of molecules we haven't even discovered yet. When we start to break down plants and we really learn what they're good at, it's going to be some interesting times to see even more where we go therapeutically for what and how plants can help us heal and feel good. There was a question about doTERRA and using essential oils internally. I'll be very clear. I don't recommend you using essential oils of any brand internally and putting them in your water. None of you, unless you're an ND, none of you are qualified. I'm not qualified. And I've been working with essential oils most of my life. It's not the best way. That's why we want to be herbalists. We want to use the whole plants. There's not a real reason, unless you're doing some very aggressive treatments, to be using essential oils internally. So not just doTERRA, any brand. I'm never going to say, hey, go put some lemon in your water. That's not my style. Go put some lemon in your water. That's what I want to see. Not some lemon essential oil in your water. All
because
right.
you're talking about super concentrated plant material when you're looking at an essential oil and it at toxic levels, correct? If you ingest, essential oil, you really can do serious damage to your kidneys and your liver and all kinds of stuff.
And that's true. And I would have to say, simply, we don't have thousands of years of safety and efficacy to point to. We don't even have 100 years of safety and efficacy to point to. If we start to evolve and we learn better, kind of like people have gotten really, for me, inappropriately into using oregano essential oil as a cold and flu prevention or treatment. I've even met one dear friend who was like putting oregano oil on her herpes. I was like, girl, you burning your skin. You're burning that herpes right off. But that's not how we do essential oils. Mostly we want them when they're more tolerable and diluted internally and externally. Let's see another question from Peggy. Do terpenes trigger the healing actions in the body, or do they provide molecules our body doesn't have or doesn't have enough of to implement a healing process? Great questions there, Peggy. Do you want to jump on that one, Mitcho, first, or should I crack at it?
I can just do a little bit. Well, yeah, the terpenes do trigger certain actions. Well, it depends on which terpene, but as you talked about, some of them are really seriously antiviral. But let's look at like the limonene in the lemon. That is, it is antiviral. It's one, along with clove. It's in the thieves oil, the original thieves oil recipes, or the Marseilles vinegar. And it's why it's in a lot of cleaners, but it's also doing other things. I believe it increases. Does it increase the blood flow to the brain? It does a lot of stuff. It's a cerebral stimulant, and so I know that it's uplifting. It's not like, it's almost the opposite of a lavender, which is also really a lovely smell. But lavender is real calming and in you go in, whereas lemon's kind of like it goes up and out in your brain. I guess that's what I would say. You could probably do it in a more scientific way, but that's what I would say.
I think you said it really well. I don't know that I need to say.
Okay.
I mean, Peggy, the example I would give is that when we use plants for what they're good at, like a lemon, many plants stimulate secretions and actions in the body. And that's one of their superpowers. So you get your mouth watering when you smell. Like, I've been simmering soup with 5 Chinese spices all day, and my home smells amazing right now. And so my digestion is getting the chance to percolate. My body's preparing for a beautiful meal that I've made for myself. That those aromas specifically trigger so many different activities. We don't even understand it fully yet. Just by smelling aromas, you can stop women who are having a lot of hot flashes. Just by smelling aroma, which is something we should look at in a few minutes, is maybe what happens when you smell, so that you can, those of you who are following us can really have a deeper understanding that it's profound. So, the Egyptians believed that Yashnaz was the dwelling place of the gods, that there's profound medicine that happens simply via aroma. And it's not aromatherapy, like just sniffing essential oils. It's just about being human, like the smell of your BO that has magic. And if you learn your body's smell, it tells you when you're off or when you're good or when you're stressed. All of those things, that those aromas are super important. Benoit's question. Thank you again. This great conversation. I'd love to learn where you're growing, especially Tulsi. Um, are there particular environmental stressors or soil conditions that increase terpene production? Such a good question. Again, Benoit, we would have to go back to terroir. If you're a grower, you're going to understand that. And so every terroir, or the rain, the sun, the soil microbes, all of that are going to influence the aroma of a plant, so much so that in aromatherapy, again, I don't like the word aromatherapy. Aromatherapy to me is like smelling chocolate chip cookies or smelling my kid's hair after he's been in the sunshine. You know, that essential oils are aromatic medicine. When in aromatherapy, and herbal medicine didn't do this, I don't know why, but specifically with essential oils, the terroir, or where a plant is grown, is so important that we call it chemotyping. That a rosemary grown in France, or rosemary officinalis grown in France compared to Spain, they are so different. You can't even use them the same, because the one grown in Spain in a really hot, dry, arid ecosystem is so much harder and so much more ketone rich. We're not going to use them the same way. So the terroir and the soil is going to influence, and the bacteria and the sun and the rain, all of that is going to very much influence the aroma of any plant. And as Mitcho, I'm sure, knows, and many of you know, if you go out and you shake your cannabis plant right before you harvest, it's going to push out even more terpenes. It's going to feel, oh, it's stressing me, I'm going to put out even more volatile oils. That's part of the nature of a plant, but you don't want to be mean to it. You want to love up your plant before you harvest it.
You do want to, like with cannabis specifically, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but with cannabis specifically, you do get more terpenes if you reduce the watering the last week or two before you harvest. And you do just slightly stress that plant out a little. And I also, the sun, or if it's indoors, the close proximity to the sunlight, that will actually also affect the terpenes. But I find that, the heat of the day when you harvest, those are things that affect those things in other things, such as lemon balm. Like you harvest lemon balm on the late morning of a hot day. That's when you do it. That's when it's best. But yeah, over fertilizing and overwatering are the two things that will lead to people not having like high quality terpenes in their cannabis, at least.
There's a couple of questions to jump back. Are terpenes part of essential oils? Are they the same thing? Lau, I'm not sure I'm saying your name right. Terpenes are a ubiquitous part of, let's go back to the slide, if you can see the slide with me. They're found everywhere. They're found in humans, they're found in rubber, they're found in fungi. These are aromatic molecules that are found in nature, also in plants. And so what we're smelling when you're smelling a plant, when you're smelling the lemon, we can say, oh, I'm smelling the terpenes, but then we can get really geeky, like on this next slide. And what plant people do is we start to get even more geeky. So most of these, are they monoterpene alcohols? Are they diterpenes? Are they sesquiterpenes? This is where we start to get into true chemistry and understanding what the actions of these molecules are. And if you want to study the actions of these molecules, come study with us at the California School of Herbal Studies, another good, or with Lisa Ganora. So you can learn, like my brain, oh, when I see ester, the first thing I know is that sequesters piece. Esters are going to be mildly sedating and great antispasmodics. All of these words from monoterpene aldehydes or monoterpene alcohols, esters, monoterpene hydrocarbons, aldehydes, sesquiterpene aldehydes, they all trigger within me a different action that the plant's going to have that can potentially help someone or hurt someone. And so it's my job to know how to formulate with them and use them in a way like ketones can kill you. If you use tuya or pennyroyal, don't play with those plants. But ketones are my bestie when it comes to working with a sinus infection and getting rid of mucus and stuck hard dry things or scar tissue. And so these understanding of these terpene molecules begins the conversation for using my scientific brain and my reductionistic brain for how am I going to use those to my advantage and help people and not hurt them.
There's a question, but before you answered, I really like the statement that you have at the bottom of this slide too. That's quite lovely. Find your family, practice simplicity, learn another language of plants, merge science and spirit. Nice.
Thank you. Well, that's really what it's about. This is our linear brain, and we don't know that much about these words yet. We're like still infants here.
Yeah.
We've been doing this from maybe the founders of some of this type of phytochemistry, barely over 100 years on this, people or humans. We're really young here, and there's so much more, at least what I realize, there's so much more we don't understand than what we do, and how to harness the potentials of utilizing these aromatic volatile molecules for health and wellness. I will type Lisa Ganora's name into the chat box.
Oh, thank you. And then maybe you can tell us how we smell, because I know that we really don't know how. There's various theories, correct?
You got it, Mitcho. There's 3 main theories, and I can actually pull a slide out for that. One sec. Let's see. I'm going to go back to Benoit again. It's really important in this time in human history, as we are adopting plants from other cultures, like Tulsi. Having been a part of the team that brought Tulsi to the world, and when we brought it out of India, one of the things that I continue to advocate for and am mindful of and get a little worried about is that we're not focusing in on the terroir and the phytochemistry, that ashwagandha is totally different when it's grown in Africa compared to India. In Africa, it's contraindicated during pregnancy, but India, it's fine. And so until we start doing chemistry profiles on what ashwagandha is like out of Oregon and compare it to a profile from its native places, we're really operating quite blind. And the same thing's true with Tulsi, that what Tulsi tastes like here is so different than what it is in India. And having served hundreds of thousands of cups of Tulsi tea and consumed it in my body, it is different. And we don't have the chemistry to back that yet, mostly. The scent of the sea and the acrid decay of the redwoods. Okay.
That's a poem.
It's beautiful. Okay. Should we read it out loud? The scent of the sea and the acrid decay of the redwoods that altered Juanita to begin her journey from the desert to the ancient ones. Thanks for the share. All right. Kind words. So before I leave this slide, just to say, these are all what they call functional groups in the plant kingdom, of how we classify essential oils and whole plants, whole herbs, by some of their phytochemistry. And again, some. There are thousands and thousands of molecules we don't understand, and we don't know what they do yet. So this is just the beginning of it. And to that end, let's see, this is what would look like if you were analyzing a plant, such as, it would have been nice if I could have had a cannabis profile, but I don't. This is Helichrysum metallicum. And it just breaks down the percentages of the different functional groups that are found in one plant. And there's thousands of more that we haven't identified yet, that we don't know what they are yet. This is what we do know. So again, to my brain, oh, look at all those esters. That tells me that Helichrysum is an amazing antispasmodic and reliever of pain, and that is one of its superpowers. So this is, the sciencey side. What would it look like? And if you want to know this more in aromatic medicine, one of the leading experts in the world, my teacher, Dr. Kurt Schnaubelt, I'll type his name, aromatherapy, advanced aromatherapy. I'll put his name in the chat. Kurt had revolutionized the world and really bringing forth to the world a lot more about the phytochemistry of essential oils specifically and how they can help us. All right, let's look at a couple sides. You're going to have to be patient with me. Oh, this is going to the chemotype awareness of just speaking to, again, Benoit, that there's, based upon the soil, that we're going to have a different chemical profile for your ashwagandha in Massachusetts compared to India, for sure. That's going to be different.
Fine. I don't like pine cones.
All right, if you get dizzy, I'm just going to scroll through my slides. So if you get dizzy, don't look. I've gotten that complaint before. This is like a 250. This is my book until I make one.
That's
okay. So
good.
Sound effects are free of charge. So I can't can't just limit the idea that when we're your skin is alive and smelling. It's a really important thing for humans to digest. We're perceiving so much of our world, of our terpenes, but also the smells around us through our skin, our largest organ, which goes back to why I get really soapboxy and preachy about why it really matters what you put on your skin and in your ecosystems.
Mm-hmm.
That when you put on an aroma and it goes into your bloodstream, your body starts to smell and it passes through every body system. Those aromas, so if you're putting on a salve or a cream or using a hydrosol and your body's smelling, those are going into your body within 20 to 60 minutes and they're out within 2 to 4 hours. When that relates to terpenes, that means that your body starts smelling as soon as you put something on. The question I'm sure you've gotten, Mitcho, is can you get a high from using cannabis topically? Well, yeah, come on. Of course you can. If you're using good herb, some people, especially sensitive people, are going to feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, more and more you see topical applications of cannabis becoming very popular. I mean, and that's why anointing with oils, with herbs infused in them, even it's a very old tradition going back to the Middle East.
So when we are putting them on your body's also smelling and it's taking that in. There was a question of what aromas might I use for hot flashes. I use lavender, clary sage essential oils, and rose geranium essential oil, all combined specifically for hot flashes. And that's based upon the work of a naturopathic doctor who did clinical trials named Blaine Andrewsick out of Canada. But that's more than 20 years ago that I learned from him. But I've still used that very successfully with a lot of people and had help. So what's happening when you're smelling? So your skin is smelling, and it's going to travel through every body system. Thank you, Dave Hoffman. When we're smelling, it's going to go through every body system. And the example that you might be familiar with is when you're chopping garlic, you start to smell it in your sweat. You smell it in your breath. Some people even say, and this is TMI for some of you, I'm sorry, but I'm not. If you were using garlic to treat a vaginal yeast infection, your yoni, your vagina would smell like that. And that's a good thing because that's killing the fungal infection. So when we're using these wonderful aromatic molecules, they pass through every body system, and that is good. That means it's helping your lungs, your kidneys, your whole body to harmonize and feel better. So if you do too many essential oils, you could really hurt yourself. This is the idea why we don't ingest them. They're too strong, they can linger, they can damage kidneys and other body systems. So when I'm looking at this slide and then jump in, Mitcho, I'm thinking, so like literally all my body is taking in these aromas and it's stimulating actions, whether I'm using them topically or just they're diffusing in the room and I'm smelling them. They're triggering actions of stimulation, calm down, prepare to eat, prepare to have intimacy, why we use them as aphrodisiacs, prepare to excrete through my lungs because they might be an expectorant, that all of these different methods of using volatile molecules, if it's cannabis, have the same action as it would if I was using an essential oil. Mitcho, anything you want to jump in on there?
No, I'm just enjoying this this whole slide. So yeah.
Yay. And I'm doing my job. With that idea, that any of you who are listening with us right now or with us live, I think it's a good idea to contemplate. I'm going to admit, so you got that for me, Stardust? Thank you. To contemplate what aromas you like, and also to become really smart about noticing what aromas you don't like. That's a really important part of using cannabis well, or any plant well. It's called your organoleptics, how things smell, how they taste, how they look, and becoming really cozy with, if you don't like a plant, it's not your plant. You don't need to like Tulsi. I can assure you don't need to like lavender, that you need to like the plants that feel good inside of you. And that is very cultural, based upon where you grew up, your family heritage, and geeking out on those aromas that feel good to you inside, finding some besties.
I do find that people often are attracted to fragrances that they may need. I don't know. I have seen that count, and I know it's anecdotal, but at least for me, but over the years, and not just at the dispensary, but in my own life and at herb school and things, people are drawn to those things that they need and those smells that would potentially help them.
Spot on. I agree with you. My wish was that everyone finds an aromatic bestie to
Mhm.
help you when life sucks, because life is going to suck and it's going to be really hard and you're going to hate parts of it. And it's so nice that when I smell neroli, it still just makes my heart sing. And even though I've lost a loved one that I didn't want to lose, I can get through it. And having a plant ally, I think that's a lot of the reason why we use cannabis. That's why we use plants, is to help lift our spirits. That's why we bring flowers in our homes, is because those aromas make things make sense when nothing else does. Just like making soup. When I smell yummy food, it makes everything make sense. And those yummy smells can trigger as we're looking at our endocrine system. So those aromas, they're going to have a conversation with all of your glandular systems too. That's a big deal. Why could it be an aphrodisiac? It turns you on. You want to find the plants that you want to make out with, right? And that's kind of the in my mind, you want to have those relationships with some plants that make you want to make out. Maybe it's coffee in the morning, or right now I've been so into my Tulsi chai in the morning. I can't wait to drink it in the morning. It smells so good. It feels really balancing.
Mhm.
So finding those aromas that get you high in the clear way, not just the cannabis high, because there's different kinds of high, that very clear, focused high that you feel after meditating or working your body, that a lot of these aromas can stimulate a similar feeling. When we're smelling, la, 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 see what someone has to say. Tulsi chai recipe. You can go buy you can buy it from Organic India. I've been drinking their Tulsi chai masala with the Tulsi rooibos combination. So
Wow.
it's a brand. It's a brand that you can buy. And you can certainly whip up a Tulsi chai with your favorite Tulsi and some ginger and some cinnamon and cardamom and clove, and boom, you got a chai. There you go. Chai just means tea.
So when you order a chai tea, you're ordering a tea.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Chai chai. That's exactly right. Very funny. So what happens when we smell? And so again, this to me, it gets out of a cerebral experience versus a whole body experience, which is what we know now. When I'm putting things on my body, when I'm smelling things, it's a whole body experience that's smelling, not just my oldest reptilian brain. And so this is showing our oldest part of our brain and what happens when we smell. The limbic system is responsible for go slides go. There we go. The limbic system, our oldest reptilian brain, is responsible for our very primal feelings, our gut level feelings, our feelings of fight or flight. The example that I would give is when someone stands next to you and they have way too much perfume on and then they hug you and that gets on you and you run, that's fight or flight for me. For, terpenes gone wrong, we can make, and this is really important to lodge inside of you, all of these, not all of these, many of these aromas that come in nature can be synthesized in a lab, and they are synthesized in a lab. That's the foundation of perfume. Most of you may not have smelt a really, truly good lavender, because method cleaning products, that's not lavender. Your lavender shampoo, your lavender lotion, that's not real lavender unless you made it yourself or you're distilling yourself. Lavender is one of the most adulterated essential oils right now because we can't meet the demand. And it's been like that for a long time. So just making sure you know that adulteration is real in aroma, that you want to be mindful of that. So what happens? Oh, go ahead.
Synthetic fragrances are actually the ones that often do a lot of damage or harm to people who have environmental illness. It's not usually real lavender oil. It's not usually real essential oils. It's these synthetics that our body doesn't know how to process. Is that correct? That's my understanding.
That's quite correct. And if you want to search how we smell in a New York Times article in Google from 2015, what the article pointed to, not only are we smelling everywhere, that we have receptor sites in our hearts, our lungs, that semen find the egg to smell, is that synthetic aromas stimulate tissue growth. That equals tumor. in some languages. And so these synthetic aromas, like if you walk around and you smell like a cloud of fabric softener, like Mrs. Myers or Bounce, if you're walking around smelling like a lot of synthetics, you are messing up your whole body in some ways we don't even understand yet. It's an upper respiratory challenger, and it's going to be, I guarantee you, an endocrine system disruptor because we don't know what we don't know yet. So when you smell, the important takeaway part is it's primal. It's involuntary. You can't rationalize it the same way that when you smell something that feels really good, it transports you and you go somewhere in your imagination with that aroma. Or when you smell the smell of a loved one that's passed, is an example that's, many people can relate to. You smell their sweater or something like that, and it floods you with the memories that these aromas are designed within us to be very primal as far as how we feel and are meant to support us in that fight or flight response of what is safe. I smell trouble. I smell a rat. That these aromas and these words are woven within us to be better aware of ourselves. Let's see what these chattiness things are happening here. Whoa, lots of chats.
Yeah. We got a cloven nipple comment. I would point out that Patrick is very good friends with Diana DeLuca, so of course you would go there, but just thought I'd share that. But we have the thing about on the market, how much is adulterated. You're saying much of lavender oil is not really the real deal.
Yeah, that's been true for, since the 80s. That especially what is exported is not out of places like France. But that's also, yeah, it's a hard one to summarize in a tiny amount of time.
Yeah.
So your nose is one thing you should say. Like, even if you didn't like the smell of a lover, don't hang out with them. They're not your mate. You should want to smell your mate, and especially if you're a woman and you're a breeder and you want to conceive and make babies. If you didn't like the smell of your partner, you probably wouldn't breed well. There's some science around that too.
Wow.
How much essential oil on the market is currently adulterated? I don't have numbers on that, but it gets worse every year is what I can say, Peggy. I get bigger and bigger notifications in my inbox. We do not have the supply of plant matter to meet the amount of humans wanting to use stuff, or for us wanting to scent our products to smell like a plant. The big ones to avoid, to be mindful of, lavender, rosemary, eucalyptus, peppermint, tea tree. Those are some really big ones right now. The article, I don't remember the name. If you Google search Lel, New York Times smelling article 2015, something should come up in your search engine. If we were hanging out longer together, I'd send you the link back. Kurt's last name, let's see, Schnaubelt, Schnaubelt. What else do we need to say about how we smell? There's some theories that we can jump back to that. So we got an olfactory bulb up here. They call this the brain outside your brain. Your nervous system literally is right here. That this is the brain outside of the brain, and this is the brain outside the brain. I'd also say your gut is the brain outside the brain. Olfactory bulb is here. You smell something, and within 2 seconds, it's starting to ping responses to go through your whole body. The main theories, and last I checked, I haven't checked this year, I check every couple months, have we advanced in our understanding of smell? These are the 3 main theories: an olfactory receptor theory, a weak shape theory, and a vibrational theory are the 3 main theories. The olfactory receptor is that your body, the nerves function like a key and lock. Those airborne molecules stimulate those receptor sites. Also, if you're putting them on you topically, then they're entering your bloodstream in your body, that your different body systems are going to register those and have conversations around those aromas that are in your body. There's a weak shape theory that says that it's based upon the shape of the odor molecule, that we detect that. And again, it helps to trigger a cascade of responses. And the vibrational theory that is based upon the vibration of the odor molecules. I'm going to bet, at least in my little brain, that it's a combination of all of them. That makes the most sense to me. It's not one. Have you heard anything else, Mitcho, on that?
No, this is all I've heard as well, and yeah, I would agree with you. It's probably a combination. The only thing I do know is that our olfactory senses are the only senses that are not first sent to the brain, sorted, and then sent back. Like when we see something, it goes to the brain, it's processed, and then you are told what you're seeing. But with your nose, it's going right into that bulb, and you're smelling. There is no brain processing it, it's going in. Is that correct? I think that's correct.
What, at least what I understand is it actually releases into our, in that limbic system, it literally within seconds is pinging responses to cascade through your whole body, that it triggers responses. And those, we don't understand those responses yet. Kind of like how smelling something can make you calm down, or smelling certain things can get rid of nausea. Smelling certain things can get rid of anxiety, right? These are all things that we know as humans. Exactly the activity and how that goes through us, I haven't seen anything solid that suggests solid there yet. I've seen theories.
Yeah.
All right.
We have a question about diffusers that are sold as plugins to electronic outlets.
Electric outlets.
Electric. I said electronic.
No, but it's electric.
Same thing.
Oh.
I don't know what are those okay to use diffusers where you would put essential oils onto a plugged in diffuser that's heated?
I'm a big fan of those. Diffusing is really fun. It's a super smart thing to do in these COVID times. You can kill up to 70% or more of airborne challenges, including virus.
Wow.
So bacteria and fungi, it's something that our species needs to be far more literate with, and how we address virus and our viral challenges around us.
That's
Chemical.
these days, that's really important. That's actually a really great thing to know.
Let's see, chemical production is cheaper than plant production and processing. Yes, to synthesize in the lab it's much cheaper. But I don't think we have the science to prove that it's going to be helpful in the same ways. Because isolated molecules, at least what we've learned, kind of like knowing how to use aspirin, it's really cool that we have aspirin, but there's usually the cost benefit analysis. When you're missing all the other molecules, at least a lot of herbalists believe we're missing the checks and balances of how that plant may work within us. So us turning to use like a cannabis drug, I'm not excited about a one size fit all molecule cannabis drug at all. I know a lot of my colleagues are, because then we can really get more specific in dose and things like that. But I think there are other ways, is what I would say, to get more specific in dose.
I agree, and I think that issue is one of the greatest fears of doctors too, is because the cannabis is going to affect everyone differently, and there is no standardized dose, and it's a plant, and so that is a little frightening to healthcare professionals who they're not able to say just do this, it'll do exactly this, because you really don't know. And maybe that's the whole point of part of this, is really you have to know yourself, and if you are using cannabis and you're looking at the terpenes, you should go slow with that. You don't need to go full force and get all doped up real fast. Take your time and go low dose and see what happens. There is an important thing Amanda brought up, and BJ's writing too, about essential oils. Cats are very sensitive to essential oils. They're also
lethal, deadly. Don't put essential oils around your cats or dogs.
Yeah.
Kill them.
Yeah. And alcohol too is not so good for cats too. So if you're talking about in terms of medicine, tinctures and things, you use oils like olive oil for a cat. You don't want to use an alcohol-based tincture either. Cats are very sensitive to environmental conditions. So my dog is not.
The question I hear here is, what are trusted brands? The smaller, the better in my world. You can certainly trust Nationwide, trust Acacia. They test. People I want to give money to Dr. Kurt Schnellbaut. His brand is Original Swiss Aromatics. That man helped change the world for good in many ways. And he's not a super rich man. I give money to Original Swiss Aromatics. I give money to Eden Botanicals, their local Petaluma source, and I certainly give money to Mountain Rose Herbs. Again, if you're going to go big, you want to make sure they have really solid testing facilities for adulteration. And anyone as big as Mountain Rose Herbs or Acacia, they have to test. Smaller, like Eden Botanical, they test too, and Kurt, but those are also built on reputations.
We're running out of time too, unfortunately, because it's such a huge topic, and I knew we would, because it's just an enormous and delightful topic. But I would like to ask you, maybe do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days before we like Aaron
You're
Jenks
so sweet.
waiting in the wings here on my back deck, and he's gonna in a few minutes talk about medicinal wines and beers. But perhaps you can tell it. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. But perhaps what are you up to these days, Trinity? What are you doing? I mean, not right.
You're very sweet for asking. I just distilled my first fresh cannabis, actually.
You did.
And so I've been doing a lot of cannabis R&D. I want to get a profile on the hydrosol and see if we can't understand some of the markers a little more clearly of what is the efficacy of hydrosol, specifically of cannabis. So I have a 50-gallon still. I distill a lot. My papa made my still, so I've been distilling, and I consult for a living, Mitcho. So I work with a lot of different brands and clients, and I do their R&D, their research and development, their safety and substantiation. I'm a lucky herbalist. I have a very full pile of fun clients. You can find me on my website if you want consulting about how to formulate and do it safely and effectively. That's me. I like to do that a lot. Thanks for asking. What are you up to?
And you can the links are on our bio page. So if you want to check out Trinity's information, and there's links there. So you should do that.
I'd like to plug in here. I mean, I want to give a shout out to Trinity too, and then you, Mitcho. It's like, it's good to have like the head knowledge, but you bring forth information, both of you, with a lot of grace, which I think is the most important ingredient in anything we do.
Thank you.
Honored. Thank you, BJ. Honored to be in community with you all. I love my herb geeks. I'm so glad to be family with you. Yeah, so lucky. So lucky.
Yes. Yeah, we are. That was
and
really fun.
Thank you all. If people want to do more classes, I'm at the California School of Herbal Studies. I've been there 22 years now. So that's where I do my most teaching. I'm not up in Washington at Bastyr anymore, but thank you for having me so much. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to hear some more about these wonderful brews. I'm excited to learn about those.
Yeah, I just saw them pour something out there, so.
Ooh, I need to get in line for some sampling.
Yeah, well, thank you, everyone. So yeah, I guess this pretty much will conclude this little segment. And we're gonna hand it over to Aaron in about 5 minutes, I think, or less. Yeah, 3 minutes. Oh, there you are. Hey.
Okay. All right. Okay, Stardust, you have control again. I'm gonna sign off.
Thanks, Trinity.
Thanks for having me, everyone. Lovely to meet you, Benoit, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, everyone. Ciao. Bye.